What would you do if your daughter, just 9 years old, polite, bright, and full of excitement on her birthday, was pushed out of a luxury boutique by a store employee simply because she didn't look like a customer? No one asked her name. No one checked what was in her wallet. They looked at her skin color, her simple dress, her school shoes, and decided not worthy of walking in. And the cruelest part? She didn't cry. She just stood there frozen for a moment, then quietly turned away, as if she had already learned to expect it. But what no one inside that store knew was that the little girl wasn't alone, and the woman waiting across the street was the new CEO of the very fashion empire that once prided itself on inclusion before it turned its back on her daughter. Ilana Carter had never felt her heart race as fast as it did while standing in front of La Rue Luxe. The elegant gold-plated sign shimmered under the afternoon sun, as if daring anyone not worthy enough to step inside. But Ilana wasn't here to look worthy. She was here to do something she had planned for months. Find the perfect dress for the woman she loved more than anyone in the world. Her mother, who had raised her alone, been her friend, her muse, her quiet hero through the storms of the fashion world. And that very mother was about to turn 40, a milestone Ilana was determined to mark in her own special way. She clutched a small purse in her hand. Inside it was $420 she had saved over the past 6 months, from washing cars for neighbors, babysitting her piano teacher's kids, even skipping ice cream just to tuck every $5 bill into a secret wooden box under her pillow. Each time she slipped one in, she wrote a note. For Mom. She had scrolled through the La Rue Luxe website dozens of times, noting every dress, every color, every description of fabric. Her mom loved classic tones with a bold edge, like the emerald green dress with jeweled neckline she had saved as her phone's lock screen. And today, after mustering the courage to take the bus alone to the largest mall in Seattle, Alana stood here, in front of that luxury store, ready to walk into a place she and her mother usually admired from the outside with a smile. One day, we'll go in and try something on, won't we, baby? The glass doors opened, and a gentle perfume mixed with classical music playing softly through the speakers, making the place feel like a completely different world. On the racks, dresses swayed gently with the breeze from the vents, and on the polished marble floor, high heels echoed in clockwork rhythm like Swiss watches. Alana stepped inside, small in stature but full of resolve. She wore a simple white summer dress, her hair neatly braided, old sneakers, worn but clean. Her face glowed with innocence, but her eyes were focused, not with cunning, but with the quiet maturity of someone who knew exactly what she was doing and who she was doing it for. She hadn't even reached the front desk when a voice, soft but sharp, cut through the air to her right. "Excuse me, can I help you?" Alana turned, smiled politely, and said softly, "I'm looking for a dress for my mom. It's her birthday soon. I've been saving for a long time." The woman who had addressed her, blonde, dressed in a pastel suit, name tag reading Deborah, glanced at her briefly before turning back to arrange a stack of flyers, as if speaking to Alana was an obligation, not part of the service. "Back section," she said, not smiling, not asking follow-up questions, not even looking again. Alana nodded, gently said thank you, and walked in the direction she was told. She didn't notice Deborah's dismissive glare or the irritated sigh behind her. She was focused on finding that dream emerald dress. At the far end of the store, light from the ceiling spotlighted the latest arrivals. Alana examined each one, brushed her fingers across the fabric, read every price tag like a strategist. $395. Expensive, but she had $420, enough for tax and a small gift box. She carefully lifted the dress off the hanger and cradled it in her arms. For a moment, she imagined her mother wearing it. Elegant figure, shy but radiant smile as she walked into the surprise party that Alana and their neighbor Jolie had been secretly planning. She approached the counter and waited. Ahead of her were two white women, being assisted warmly by Deborah. "You'll be the star of the evening, I promise," she cooed. When it was Alana's turn, she smiled and gently held up the dress. "I'd like to try this on, please." Deborah looked at the dress, then at her. Her expression turned from cold to contemptuous. "This one is $395, she said, every word dropping like a weight. Alana nodded. I know. I have the money. She opened her purse, carefully pulling out the bills, sorting them into stacks of 50s, 20s, and 10s, then placed them on the counter. Deborah stared at the money like it had just been pulled from a drug deal. Where did you get this money? Alana looked confused. I saved it. I did chores. I didn't steal it. There was no thank you, no acknowledgement, just a sharp look and a step back. We don't allow try-ons unless customers can prove ability to purchase. Alana paused. But I just gave you the money. Deborah didn't respond. She turned away and picked up the phone. Alana stood still, trying to grasp what was happening. Then she heard the words that froze her heart. Yes, we have a black teenage girl, acting suspiciously. I need someone here immediately. She froze. Who are you calling? Deborah looked back at her with unveiled disdain. Security, just to make sure you're not hiding anything in your pockets or jacket. Alana trembled. She didn't know what to say. At that moment, a young employee at the side counter, an Asian girl named Kylie, had seen everything. She looked at Alana with sympathy, but then turned away. She had seen this before. It wasn't the first time Deborah managed the store with this kind of discrimination, and no one dared speak up if they wanted to keep their job. Alana remained standing there at the counter, holding the emerald dress and her stack of money, now treated like suspicious evidence. And in that brief moment, her world, the one where kindness was supposed to be met with kindness, began to crack. Deborah Knox never thought of herself as a racist. She said that every time someone hinted, usually with a look, that her decisions in screening customers had a biased undertone. I'm just doing my job, Deborah often said. Her job, as she saw it, was to protect the brand's value, to keep La Rue Luxe clean, elegant, exclusive. But those words, clean, elegant, exclusive, had long stopped referring to clothing or ambiance. They were a shield, a polished language used to cover up prejudice deeply embedded in the system. Deborah wasn't born into wealth. She had worked at discount clothing stores, climbed the managerial ladder, learned how to fake friendliness with the wealthy, while quietly looking down on those who reminded her of her former self. She had seen too many poor kids walk into a store, touch fine fabrics with grubby hands, wrinkle garments, mess up the racks, and leave empty-handed. She no longer judged by logic, but by reflex. Brown skin, alone, simply dressed. The first instinct was suspicion. Eyes must follow. Voice must be firm. And if needed, call security. To Deborah, it was risk management. To people like Alana, it was humiliation. When she set the phone down after requesting security assistance, Deborah felt no remorse. She felt right. A black child carrying a large amount of cash. Something about that always felt off, at least in her internal world. She had never paused to ask, where did those instincts come from? Because in the world of those who fancy themselves guardians of the brand, no one wants to question their own reflection. Alana stood still, her eyes wide. Her hands clutched the emerald dress like someone clinging to the edge of a boat in the open sea. She couldn't understand why her politeness and clarity were seen as threats. She looked around, hoping for a sympathetic glance, or at least a fair one. But the other employees avoided her gaze. Customers in the store had begun whispering. An older woman even gently pulled her daughter back and muttered something that sounded like, let's avoid trouble. Behind the counter, Kylie Nguyen stood frozen, pen in hand but writing nothing. She was 27, Vietnamese-American, with a retail management degree from a small college in Oregon, and had been hired at La Rue Luxe 8 months ago. At first, she had been thrilled. This was a famous brand, where every item was displayed like art, where customers spent thousands on a silk scarf. But that early excitement had slowly given way to a nameless bitterness. Kylie had witnessed Deborah treating customers differently, not with words but with looks, delays in service, pretending to be busy, or giving curt replies. If the customer was a middle-aged white woman with a Prada bag, Deborah would beam like a florist greeting a beloved patron. If it was a young woman of Latin or Asian descent, modestly dressed, she'd become a silent warden, circling like she was waiting for a misstep. Kylie had once considered speaking up, defending a customer. But then she remembered her last quarterly performance review, Deborah had emphasized that some staff need to better understand brand culture, or they may not last long. Kylie knew that message was aimed at her, and she needed this job to pay off student loans, to support her family, to survive in a city as expensive as Seattle. But today was different. Today was the first time Kylie saw a child publicly degraded. Not with insults, but with looks, with actions, with a call to security without just cause. She didn't know the girl's name, but she could see the hurt on her face, and it reminded her of her own younger sister, also 14 in middle school, who often asked Kylie for help picking out birthday gifts for their mom. If that were her sister, would anyone stand up for her? Outside, two mall security guards began walking over. One wore an earpiece, the other scribbled something into a notepad. Deborah waved them over and pointed at Alana. That one, in the white dress, I suspect shoplifting, possibly hid merchandise in her jacket. Alana turned, eyes wide. I didn't take anything. You can check my bag. I just want to buy a dress for my mom. The older guard, named Matthew, seemed unsure. But the younger one, stricter and more by the book, named James, had already begun asking Alana to come with him. I have the right to call my mom, Alana said, trying to stay calm. No, you may not use your phone at this time, Deborah interjected. Phones can be used to tamper with evidence. Alana froze. Part of her wanted to cry. Part of her wanted to scream. But her mother's voice, from years of guidance, echoed in her head. When others lose control, you must be the one who stays grounded. She bit her lip hard and nodded, tears forming. Then Kylie did something even she didn't expect. She stepped out from behind the counter, walked toward Alana, gently placed herself in front of the girl, and spoke to Deborah. She doesn't have anything on her. I saw the whole thing. She's just buying a birthday present for her mom. The room fell silent for a second. Deborah turned, eyes sharp as blades. Kylie, get back to the counter. This isn't your concern. If you have thoughts about internal matters, we can discuss them after your shift. Kylie was about to say something but stepped back. Yet it wasn't submission. It was the step of someone collecting evidence, remembering every detail, preparing for a reckoning. She quietly texted her husband. Something serious just happened at the store. I need a witness. By then, Alana had been taken to the front of the store, where she was told to wait for the police, a request made for safety by store management. No one asked if she wanted water. No one asked if she was okay. In Deborah's mind, this was a job well done. Early risk detection, threat elimination, brand image preserved. In Kylie's mind, this was the day her conscience could no longer live with silence. In Alana's mind, this was the first time she grasped a bitter truth. Sometimes people don't need a reason to assume you're bad. Your skin color and the fact that you don't look like you belong here are enough. And across the city, the iPhone of Dr. Monica Carter, the woman whose name Deborah was about to learn, buzzed with a message that would change everything. Alana Carter sat quietly on the cold iron bench just outside La Rue Lux, both hands resting in her lap, clutching the small purse that held every dollar she had painstakingly saved over the past 6 months. Her face was frozen, not from the cold, but from shock. Everything had happened so fast, so irrationally, that Alana could barely register the passage of time. Just an hour earlier, she was standing outside the store, her heart brimming with excitement, like a child waiting for Christmas to arrive early. And now she was surrounded by suspicious eyes, accused of theft by the manager, and told by security to stay seated while waiting for the police to arrive. She didn't know what to do other than stay silent, breathe slowly, and try not to cry. Deborah Knox stood beside the two security guards, her expression blank, but every word she uttered was razor sharp, slicing through the dignity of a child. The girl entered the store exhibiting highly suspicious behavior, she said, as if testifying in court. I watched her from the moment she walked in, shifty eyes constantly looking around, unaccompanied by an adult, and most notably, carrying an unusual amount of cash. I have reason to believe this is a potential theft situation. One of the guards, Matthew, frowned but said nothing, while the other, James, nodded, jotting down each detail as if it were indisputable fact. Alana didn't speak in her defense. She had already tried explaining inside the store. She had shown her money clearly, stated that she just wanted to buy a birthday gift for her mom. But that meant nothing to Deborah, because the moment she saw Alana, a young black girl, dressed simply in a white dress, alone, she had already decided that Alana didn't belong. And once that prejudice was set in motion, every action afterward was just part of the narrative to reinforce it. Meanwhile, behind the thick glass of the storefront, Kylie Nguyen stood silently at the counter, her hands tightly gripping the clipboard she used for inventory. She could no longer pretend she hadn't seen what happened. Alana was polite, composed, and clear. Kylie had watched Deborah deny help from the start, had seen her shadow Alana like she was a threat, and now it was going too far. Kylie thought of her own younger sister, also 14, who once sobbed after being scolded by a store employee for picking up the wrong perfume tester. Kylie didn't know what she could do to protect Alana, but silence now felt like complicity. Outside, a small crowd had begun to gather. Some held up phones to record, others watched from a distance. The air was thinning, as if everyone was waiting for a scandal to erupt, or at least a scene worthy of social media. A middle-aged customer whispered to her husband, "What's going on? Did she steal something?" That seemingly harmless question felt like the final cut to Alana's pride. She had done nothing wrong, yet the world around her now looked at her like a juvenile criminal. Deborah began calling the police. Her voice was clear, confident, as if she were reading from a rehearsed script. "This is the manager at La Rue Luxe. We have a suspicious black female minor, possibly involved in a theft. She has refused to cooperate and is displaying erratic behavior. I request officers be sent immediately." After hanging up, she turned to James and whispered, "Keep the girl seated. No phone use. No contact with other customers. We can't let this damage the store's image." James nodded while Matthew, the only one showing hesitation, quietly stepped back. Alana felt a lump in her throat. She reached into her purse for her phone and was about to call her mother, but James quickly approached and said, "You're not allowed to use your phone right now. It's a security protocol." Alana nodded, slid the phone back into her coat pocket without protest. She still remembered her mother's words. "When you're cornered, don't react the way they expect you to. They want you to lose your temper. Don't give them that power." And right then, Kylie Nguyen stepped out. She walked out of the store, came straight to Alana, and gently asked, "Are you okay?" Alana looked up at the young woman as if she had just found a lifeline in a freezing sea. But before she could respond, Deborah stormed over, her voice sharp as steel. "Kylie, get back inside immediately. You're overstepping your authority." Kylie didn't answer right away. She stood still, looked Deborah in the eye, and said, "The girl didn't do anything wrong. I saw every move she made. There was nothing suspicious." Deborah paused for a beat, then lowered her voice, even more cutting. "I'll remember this, Kylie." 15 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. Two officers stepped out, a tall white man named Officer Bradley and a younger female officer with him. Deborah quickly approached them, laying out the situation with a confidence that made it seem as if she were the victim, not the instigator. "This girl has been acting suspicious since the moment she arrived. I suspect she concealed merchandise in her coat. When confronted, she immediately pulled out a large amount of cash. I've managed this store for over 6 years. I know when something's off." Officer Bradley nodded and turned to Alana. "What's your name?" "Alana Carter." "You came here alone?" "Yes." "Did you buy anything?" "Not yet. I was looking for a dress to buy for my mom." "Do you have money?" Alana nodded, opened her purse, and showed the bundle of neatly folded bills wrapped with a rubber band. "I saved up for 6 months." Officer Bradley looked at the money, then at Deborah. "You said theft. Is there any physical evidence?" Deborah replied quickly. "The cameras are down for maintenance, but I personally saw her holding a dress and then slipping her hand into her coat. I've seen that move before." Officer Bradley turned to the female officer beside him. "Check her bag." Alana handed over her bag without resistance. Inside were a phone, a pack of gum, some tissues, and the neatly arranged cash box. Nothing suspicious. Still, Bradley's tone didn't change. "We'll need you to come with us to the station for further review." Alana said nothing. She couldn't understand why the truth wasn't enough to clear her. She lowered her head, fighting back tears. At that moment, her phone buzzed violently. A message from her mom had arrived. "Alana, I can't get through to you. What's going on? Call me back now." She didn't get a chance to respond before James stepped forward again, telling her to put the phone away. Across the city, inside a glass tower in Seattle's financial district, Dr. Monica Carter had just wrapped up a presentation in the boardroom with key investors. As she looked down at her phone, she saw 8 missed calls from her daughter. The final message made her heart seize. "Mom, they're taking me. I didn't do anything. I'm at LaRue Luke's." The phone in Monica Carter's hand buzzed for the 9th time as she stood in the lobby of the 27th floor of Lumina Tower, where she had just concluded a $60 million expansion strategy presentation before the investment board. Though the room had just echoed with polite applause, she couldn't shake the look Gregory Dale, the board's oldest member, gave her as he delivered his final remark. "While the financials are impressive, I still question whether a large corporation should be led by a single mother. Isn't that too emotional?" Monica had smiled at the time, answering with the calm of a woman who no longer needed to prove her worth. But the moment she left the boardroom and opened her phone to read Alana's message. "Mom, they're taking me. I didn't do anything. I'm at LaRue Lux." Every layer of armor she wore collapsed in an instant. Monica called back immediately, but no one answered. She called again, then messaged her assistant Patricia. "Cancel everything. I need the car. Now." Sprinting toward the elevator, Monica shouted to her chief legal officer, "Call David Chen. Get me everything on LaRue Luke's. If anyone touched my daughter without just cause, I will shake this entire system." She pulled off her heels and slipped into a pair of sneakers she kept in her emergency drawer, then stormed into the elevator without looking back. Patricia knew this wasn't business as usual. Monica was the kind of woman who never walked out of a meeting halfway. For her to leave a financial briefing mid-sentence, abandoning a room full of powerful people over a single text from her daughter, meant this was more serious than any deal. Patricia began making calls. To the driver, to internal security, to the HR director of the LaRue Lux branch, even to a reporter she knew at Channel 4. "You might want to stay close to your phone this afternoon." In the car, Monica buckled her seatbelt and called David Chen, the lawyer who had handled the company's legal affairs for 11 years. "David, my daughter is being held at LaRue Luke's. I need you there. No permission, no delay." Her voice wasn't loud, but it was iron. David knew that whenever Monica spoke in that tone, the system was about to be flipped. "What happened?" he asked. "She didn't do anything. They called the police on her because she wanted to buy a dress. I don't know which manager is escalating this nonsense, but I swear, they will remember this day." At the same time, Monica dialed the number of the city's chief inspector, Raymond Scott, a man she had funded for years through youth police scholarships and community safety programs. "Raymond, it's me, Monica Carter. My daughter is being detained at my own store. Did any officer just respond to a report from LaRue Lux? I need the names, locations, and my daughter's status. Now." Raymond knew from Monica's voice that this wasn't a drill. "Give me 1 minute to check the system." She heard the sound of files being flipped and frantic keyboard tapping on the other end. "I found it. A manager named Deborah Knox called in a suspected theft. Described the suspect as a black teenage girl, around 14. Officers are transporting her to the station now. Responding officer, Bradley." Monica bit her lip, her eyes stinging. "Which Bradley?" "Ethan Bradley, District 9. Call him. Tell him the girl they're holding is the daughter of the CEO who owns that store. And if they so much as touch a hair on her head, I'll bring the entire unit to federal court for violating juvenile civil rights." Raymond nodded, even though she couldn't see him. He knew Monica had the power to make that promise real, in less than 24 hours. Meanwhile, back at LaRue Luke's, the situation was spiraling out of Deborah's control. People who had filmed the incident were already uploading to TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. One post read, "A child got the cops called on her for trying on a dress for her mom. It's all on video. She did nothing wrong. This isn't covert racism anymore. It's straight to your face." A full video surfaced. Alana opening her wallet, speaking clearly, offering her money, being turned away, then escorted out. No yelling, no physical aggression. Yet the soft violence of stares and administrative power was on full display. Kylie stood outside, still trembling. She wanted to act, but didn't know where to start. Suddenly, a black woman in athletic wear with a social worker badge approached her. "I'm Natasha. I was passing by and saw everything. You work here, right?" Kylie nodded. "I can be a witness if needed, but that girl did nothing wrong. I saw the whole thing." Natasha nodded, recorded Kylie's statement on her phone, and said, "Keep that testimony. Someone will need it." Inside the patrol car a few blocks away, Alana sat motionless. Officer Bradley said little. The female officer in the passenger seat looked at her through the rearview mirror, her expression uncertain. Alana stared out the window, her tears now dry. She didn't know how to explain anymore when no one was listening. She didn't understand why kindness, clarity, and honesty weren't enough to protect her from a lie. All she knew was that her silence wasn't surrender. It was faith that her mother would come. And then came the sound of screeching tires in front of the store. A silver-gray Mercedes stopped abruptly, parked diagonally across the street. Monica stepped out like a storm. She didn't run. She walked straight ahead, each step a verdict. Her fitted charcoal gray suit cut a commanding silhouette amid the crowd. No one knew who she was, but everyone could feel it. This woman wasn't here to ask questions. She was here to reclaim the truth. She stopped 3 steps from Deborah. "Are you Deborah Knox?" Monica's voice was low but firm. Deborah hadn't even replied when Monica held out her business card and ID. "I'm Monica Carter, CEO of Lumina Fashion Group. You just called the police on my daughter. For what reason?" The question rang out like the final bell of a fight, not loud but impossible to ignore. Deborah stepped back. Her face went pale. Someone in the crowd gasped, "Oh my God, that girl's her daughter!" Bradley stepped forward, having caught the conversation. Monica turned to him. "Officer, she's 14. She has a name, a reason, money, and witnesses. Why didn't you ask anyone before taking her away?" Bradley faltered. "I was just following the manager's report. She said she saw suspicious behavior." Monica lowered her voice, but it cut sharper than a blade. "Then today is the day we all relearn the law. And if I must, I'll teach you myself in federal court." Alana stepped out of the car and ran into her mother's arms, sobbing for the first time that day. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to buy you a dress." Monica held her tightly. The eyes that had once shaken boardrooms were now red and wet, but her voice remained unshaken. "I know, baby, and this isn't where it ends." Monica Carter still held her daughter tightly in her arms when one of the police officers handed her a file labeled Incident Report, his voice trying to remain composed. "We haven't filed formal charges, but since we received a direct report from the store manager, we were required to follow protocol." Monica didn't look at the file, nor did she respond immediately. Instead, she gently pulled Alana back, looking straight into her tear-swollen face. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Alana nodded, trying to stifle a sob. Monica turned to Bradley, her words slicing through the air. "What exactly is your protocol? To accept a report without verification? To detain a child without asking who her mother is? Or does this protocol only apply to children of color?" Bradley took a step back, avoiding Monica's gaze. Everyone around them fell silent. The crowd's eyes no longer held curiosity, only horror. Deborah Knox stood a short distance away, pale as a sheet. She had heard Monica Carter's name before, had seen her photo in business magazines but had never met her in person, and now the powerful woman stood before her, not as a CEO but as a mother. Monica slowly turned toward Deborah. "You said my daughter acted suspiciously. You said she stuffed a dress into her coat. You said you saw it with your own eyes. I'm going to ask only once. Do you have proof of that?" Deborah's lips trembled, her eyes darting toward the store entrance, hoping someone might speak on her behalf. No one did. Monica continued, "If the answer is no, I suggest you remain silent. Because anything you say right now can and will be used against you in the lawsuit I'm about to file." A quiet wow slipped out from someone in the crowd, followed by instant silence. Monica turned to Kylie Nguyen, her expression softening. "You work at the store?" Kylie nodded. "I saw everything. The girl did nothing wrong. She was polite, offered her money up front, was turned away without reason, and then had security called on her. I can't stay silent anymore. Monica nodded. I need you to be a witness, and I assure you, your job won't be at risk. From this moment on, LaRue Lux is under my direct management. A few minutes later, Monica called David Chen. His voice was tense on the other end. I'm on my way. Any updates? Monica replied, cancel all meetings for the next 48 hours. Call the media team, prepare for a press conference, and file a formal complaint with Seattle's Internal Affairs. David was silent for a second, then said, understood. Monica hung up and turned to Alana. Do you want to go home? Alana shook her head. I want to buy the dress. That one. The emerald one. Monica smiled, the first smile she'd had all day. She looked at Kylie. Can you help us get that dress back? Kylie nodded and went inside. The police began to leave after Monica requested the incident be fully documented in the presence of legal counsel. The crowd started to disperse, though a few remained to express their support. An elderly white woman approached, shaking Monica's hand. Your daughter is brave, and so are you. Monica nodded, saying nothing. Inside the store, Kylie returned with the emerald green dress. Alana took it, held it up to her mother. I think it suits you. Monica stroked her daughter's hair. I think it's the most beautiful dress I've ever had. After leaving the store, Monica and Alana got into the car and headed to the headquarters of Lumina Fashion Group. On the way, she called Marcus, her older brother, a federal judge for the Western District. Marcus, it happened. I need you. Marcus responded immediately. Send me all the documents by email. I'll convene the federal legal advisory team. Are you planning to push hard? Monica answered without hesitation. I don't want to push. I want to clarify. I want to go big, so that no child ever has to go through this again. Marcus simply replied, then give me 20 minutes. At headquarters, the media team had already assembled. Monica entered the emergency meeting room, placed her bag on the table, and swept her gaze across the room. I want an official statement drafted in 60 minutes. Theme, commitment to justice, anti-discrimination, and the safety of minor customers. There will be a video release. We go live tonight, and I want every single employee across the system to watch it. She turned to the chief operating officer. Knox is to be suspended immediately. I want an official email sent to all branch-level managers by 6 p.m. Then she turned to the head of HR. I want a new mandatory retail staff training plan implemented across all stores within 30 days. Everyone took notes. No one dared interrupt. Monica sat down, leaned back in her chair, and turned to David Chen. Do you have the store footage yet? David nodded. Kylie sent it, and we've got video from customers outside too. Everything's clear. Monica nodded. Then we have everything. She stood, walked toward the large window where the Seattle sunset was beginning to descend, and murmured just loud enough for the room to hear. A child shouldn't need a mother who's a CEO just to be treated fairly when walking into a store. No one responded, because no one could argue with that. Monica Carter's silver gray AMG Mercedes sped through the streets of Seattle like an arrow, cutting through rush hour traffic, past intersections where her driver, Thomas, continuously requested priority clearance via the city's high-level traffic coordination system. In the back seat, Monica didn't lean back. She sat upright, phone in hand, eyes scanning the flood of notifications on her screen. She had called 8 people in 12 minutes. Attorney David Chen was already en route to the scene. Her assistant Patricia had sent an emergency alert to the entire executive board of Lumina Fashion Group. The head of HR had locked Deborah Knox's system access and deactivated her internal email account. But to Monica, it still wasn't enough. Every second was time her daughter remained humiliated, and if there was a single misstep in how this situation was handled, the entire system would pay dearly. She opened a new message from Marcus, her older brother, a federal judge. Calling the district magistrate to monitor live. We'll be on site in 30 minutes. Don't speak to media unless your attorney is next to you. Monica didn't reply. She switched to a video call with her closest friend, Dr. Lena Brooks, a child psychologist who had supported Monica and Alana since the early post-divorce years. Lena, Monica said, I'm not sure how deep the trauma is, but I need you at the store ASAP. If there are any signs of emotional shock, we're starting treatment immediately. Lena nodded, her silver curls glowing under the clinic lights. "I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 18 minutes." Monica ended the call and switched to an emergency group message addressed to 4 journalists she had worked with on past anti-discrimination campaigns in the fashion industry. Major incident incoming. Police wrongly detained a minor based on a false report. We have footage, eyewitnesses, and the CEO. I need you there in 45 minutes. No questions. Nothing goes public until I arrive. 3 responded within a minute. The 4th called back directly. "How big is this?" Monica answered, "Big enough to shut down LaRue Lux nationwide if I want to." As the car turned onto the avenue leading to Westlake Plaza Mall, Monica activated speakerphone and dialed Raymond Scott, the chief of police for Seattle. "Raymond, what's the situation?" Raymond exhaled on the other end. "I've spoken to Bradley. He's holding your daughter in the vehicle. No harm has been done, but the store manager insists she saw the girl hide the dress in her coat. The in-store cameras are reportedly down." Monica gave a cold laugh. Classic excuse, broken at the perfect moment. Raymond fell silent. Monica continued, "I don't care if the cameras are down. I have witnesses, I have customer video, and I have a store employee's statement. What I need from you now is this. Preserve Officer Bradley's legal future by making sure he does nothing else. No searches, no handcuffs, no contact with my daughter." "Understood," Raymond replied curtly. Monica hung up. Her driver, Thomas, glanced into the mirror. "Where should I stop, ma'am?" Monica replied, "At the main entrance. Block the road if you have to. I'm not coming in through the side." By now, outside LaRue Lux, the crowd had grown. Social media posts had spread at lightning speed. A Twitter account that documents racial profiling incidents had posted a thread under hashtag Justice for Alana, including footage of the girl being escorted from the store without explanation. The video had surpassed 200,000 views in under 15 minutes. Local news outlets had dispatched reporters. A group of college students passing by had stopped and started an Instagram livestream. Inside the store, employees were panicking. Kylie Nguyen stood near the entrance, eyes fixed on the parking lot, checking her phone repeatedly. When she saw the silver-gray Mercedes approaching, she turned to her coworkers and said, "She's here." Someone asked, "Who?" Kylie replied without turning, "The real owner of this place." As the car came to a stop, Monica opened the door and stepped out with a presence that made the entire space physically shift. No one spoke. She had no security detail. She wasn't shouting. She held no signs. But everyone could feel the power approaching, a power that didn't need volume, but couldn't be challenged. She walked directly to the patrol car. Officer Bradley stood upright like a soldier reporting to a superior. Monica didn't pause. She walked to the window, tapped it 3 times. The door opened. Alana looked up, saw her mother, and broke into tears. Monica bent down and said gently, "I'm here. No one is going to touch you." She reached out. Alana took her hand and stepped out. Monica didn't ask further questions. She turned to Bradley. "Explain." Bradley swallowed hard. "I was following the store manager's statement. Ms. Knox claimed she personally saw the girl conceal merchandise. There's no camera footage, no physical evidence. But I didn't search her. I didn't use cuffs." Monica nodded. "Good, because if you had handcuffed her, I'd be handcuffing your entire precinct." She turned to face Deborah, now trembling behind the glass doors. Monica didn't enter. She stood directly in front of Deborah and said only one sentence. "I'm not suing you for what you did to my daughter. I'm suing you for every child who doesn't have a CEO for a mother." Then she turned away, not waiting for a response. Deborah collapsed to the floor, unable to utter a word. Monica walked back to the car, but this time she didn't get in. She motioned for Kylie to come closer. "We'd like to buy that dress, the emerald one." Kylie nodded and ran inside. A moment later, she returned holding the carefully wrapped gown in both hands. Monica knelt down to her daughter. "So we're still going with this one?" Alana nodded, her eyes lighting up for the first time all day. No one in the crowd dared to whisper anymore. No one looked away. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something. Not a fight, not a scandal, but a rupture in the system. A mother had crossed an entire city to reclaim her daughter's dignity, and the system had no way to stop her. The silver-gray Mercedes remained parked dead center, blocking part of the entrance road to Westlake Plaza, like an immovable monument in the middle of chaos. No one dared to ask that the vehicle be moved. No horns blared. No security personnel approached. Because everyone knew the woman inside that car wasn't just a high-profile customer or an angry mother. She was the living embodiment of silent power, the kind of person who could bring an entire system to a halt just by showing up. Monica sat in the back seat, the car doors closed, the emerald green dress her daughter had just bought, or rather reclaimed, from a cloud of suspicion, judgment, and bias resting gently in her hands. The fading evening light filtered through the lightly tinted windows, casting a soft halo around her dark brown curls. She said nothing for the first 10 minutes. Her phone was on silent. Her laptop sat open but idle. She simply sat, one hand on her knee, the other holding the dress. In front of her, Alana had fallen asleep from exhaustion, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. Thomas, the driver, didn't ask a word. He simply adjusted the cabin temperature and lowered the volume of the radio to its quietest setting. The air inside the car was thick with emotion, yet no one dared to touch it. Not until Monica's phone vibrated for the fourth time in a row. She checked the screen. It was Marcus. "I'm here," she said softly, careful not to wake her daughter. "I spoke with 2 reporters from the Tribune and Seattle Weekly. They're drafting stories now. But I'm advising you not to release anything public for 24 hours. We're still reviewing the legal grounds for suing the store." Monica nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I'll keep still, but I won't stay silent." Marcus replied instantly, "I know. But this time, we play by the book, not by emotion." When the call ended, Monica turned her attention back to Alana. She gently kissed her daughter's forehead, then slowly took the dress from her hand. She examined the fabric, Italian satin, finely stitched, V-neck with delicate jeweled trim, its emerald sheen catching the sunset like a quiet spark. A flawless design. But what made this dress a symbol had nothing to do with its price tag. It was that, for a moment, it had been marked by prejudice, dismissed by the gaze of someone who believed that black and luxury couldn't belong in the same space. Monica quietly folded the dress, placed it in its velvet-lined cloth bag, and looked out the window. In the distance, Deborah Knox was trying to leave the mall, surrounded by reporters. Questions rained down. "Did you call the police based on suspicion alone? Do you plan to apologize? Did you know the girl was Monica Carter's daughter?" She answered none. Head lowered, she walked quickly, as if fleeing. Monica didn't feel satisfaction, no sense of revenge, no triumph. What she felt was a different kind of stillness, as if a system was starting to tremble from within. Not because of a CEO, but because a child had been wronged, and because millions of other children are wronged every day, unseen. She opened her phone, tapped into notes, and created a new file. La Rue Luxe Restructuring Plan. Beneath it, she typed the first line. 1. Reassess all youth customer service protocols. 2. Build a no judgment, no assumptions, no exclusion policy. 3. Hire multicultural advisors to retrain the retail system. Thomas glanced in the rearview mirror and asked gently, "Ms. Monica, should we return to headquarters now?" Monica checked the time. 6:43 p.m. She considered it for a few seconds, then answered, "No. Home. I want my daughter sleeping in her own bed tonight." Thomas nodded and turned the wheel, guiding the car away from the city center toward the private estate in Queen Anne, where Monica rarely returned before 10 p.m. But tonight, she needed to. And more than anything, Alana needed it. That evening, after Alana had fallen asleep, Monica sat alone in her private office. A small room in the 3-story home, its walls paneled with walnut wood and decorated with artwork by women of color. On the desk sat her laptop, already loaded with the media crisis strategy plan, but she didn't type. Instead, she opened an old email, a draft she had written 3 years ago but never sent. Recipient, Deborah Knox. Subject, Proposal to improve Black customer experience at La Rue Luxe. In the email, she outlined the weaknesses in their service system, proposed a 3-phase staff retraining initiative, and offered to fully fund a campaign called Fashion for All, a project that would prioritize emotional connection over appearance. The email had never been opened. Status: no response. Monica didn't delete the email. She simply clicked forward and sent it to the media team with a short note. They were warned 3 years ago, and they ignored it. Then she leaned back in her chair, eyes closed. Part of her wanted to end it all right now. But another part, the one she had honed through every battle in the fashion industry, told her this was just the beginning. Because if Monica Carter could be turned away inside a brand she helped build, then anyone could. And if it didn't start with her, who else would take responsibility? She opened her eyes and looked at the painting across the room. An abstract portrait of a little girl standing on a runway, holding a dress, looking out toward the audience. Her face unclear, her skin tone undefined. But Monica had always felt as if she were looking at Alana. She stood, walked over, and gently wiped a speck of dust from the frame's edge. And in that moment, she was no longer a CEO, no longer the central figure in a media storm. She was just a mother, and the woman in the Mercedes, who chose not to retaliate but to transform. The first message came in at 6:57 a.m., just one line. She's the CEO. That sentence appeared in the internal group chat of LaRue Luke's employees and sliced through Seattle's misty morning like lightning across the sky. By 7:05, more than 38 staff members had read it and were flooding the thread with questions. Which woman? CEO of what? The first to share a news link was Kylie, the only one calm enough the night before to fully grasp what was happening. She sent a link to Seattle Weekly. Monica Carter, CEO of Lumina Fashion Group, mistaken for a shoplifter at her own brand's retail chain. Below the headline was a crystal-clear image from the store's security camera. Monica in a charcoal gray suit, arm around her daughter's shoulder, eyes sharp as blades as they walked out of LaRue Luke's, flanked by two visibly uneasy security guards. No one needed to read further to know that this was the peak of a brewing crisis. Elsewhere on the top floor of Lumina Fashion Group's headquarters, Monica stood in front of the office window, silently watching the street below. Everything outside appeared to function normally. Cars moving, pedestrians passing, a few people grabbing Starbucks on the corner. But inside, the air was unusually heavy. She had anticipated public reaction, but no one had expected the truth to spread this fast. She set her phone down on the table. In under 2 hours, there were over 137 tweets, nearly 20 articles on major news outlets, and 5 exclusive interview requests from CNN, MSNBC, Vogue, The Washington Post, and even The Ellen Show. But Monica wasn't interested in the spotlight. She cared about one thing. Would Alana understand why her mother stayed silent yesterday? As Monica left her office for an emergency meeting with the Strategic and Communications Council, a stream of personal messages began pouring in. One came from the person she least expected, Deborah Knox. The message had just 2 words: "I'm sorry." Monica stared at it for a few seconds, then chose not to respond. Not because she was still angry, but because apologies only hold value when they come before the truth explodes. Now it was just reflex, a defense mechanism when someone gets caught. She switched her phone to airplane mode and walked into the meeting room. The room was packed. Marcus, Monica's lawyer and older brother, opened. "This situation is beyond internal handling. It's no longer personal. It's become a national dialogue." Monica nodded. She knew, and for that reason she couldn't respond emotionally. She spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "I don't want to just clean up one store. I want to reset the mindset that made this behavior seem normal." Another team member asked, "So are you planning to go public with the story or keep it contained?" Monica replied, "We don't have that choice. The story's already public. The only decision now is, how do we tell it, and who do we tell it for?" Just hours later, a short clip from LaRue Lux's security footage leaked. It wasn't edited. It began with Alana walking into the store and ended right before the mother and daughter left. The video lasted 4 minutes and 36 seconds, but the first 30 seconds alone were enough to ignite the internet. Outrage exploded. The hashtag number "Let Her Try the Dress" reached Twitter's top 3 trending topics in under 3 hours. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok users flooded their feeds with the moment Deborah Knox pointed at Alana and said, "If you don't have money, it's best not to touch anything." But what shook audiences most wasn't that line. It was Alana's eyes. The eyes of a child realizing that this world might not be made for her, not even on her mother's birthday. Evening newscasts across the country made the story their headline. The NBC nightly news anchor opened with a line that carried real weight. You can be a CEO, you can build an entire fashion empire. But if you're a black woman, dressed simply, walking with your daughter, you can still be stopped, doubted, and humiliated inside a store that bears your name. Monica didn't watch the program. She sat in the living room with Alana, eating pizza and watching cartoons. She knew what was happening out there, but tonight she needed her daughter to remember that some things remain normal, even when the world went off the rails. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A former La Rue Luxe employee named Nia Watkins posted a long story on LinkedIn detailing her own experience of discrimination within the system. I was once penalized for serving a customer in workout clothes, got written up for failing to screen for appropriate clientele. I reported it to HR. I emailed the regional manager. No one responded. But today, when I saw Monica Carter treated that way, I knew I wasn't being paranoid. I was just someone who endured too much for too long. The post received 1.3 million interactions within 10 hours. By that night, over 42 other former employees had left comments confirming similar experiences. This was no longer a scandal. It was an industry reckoning. While rival companies rushed to issue public statements supporting diversity, Monica took a different path. She held a private roundtable with only 12 attendees, each representing a marginalized group historically excluded from fashion. Women of color, trans individuals, people with disabilities, indigenous communities, plus-size individuals, non-English speakers, elders, and formerly incarcerated people. Monica opened with one question. If you had the power to redesign a store, a shopping experience, a service model, where would you begin? The meeting wasn't recorded, but later it became the foundation for Monica's new initiative, the Mirror Project, a nationwide retail reformation program, born from her own lived experience. When the official surveillance footage from La Rue Luxe's internal camera system was released, no one anticipated it would become the turning point of the entire case. For over a week following the incident, the store's public statements had all carried a tone of self-defense, claiming a communication misunderstanding, necessary security protocols, or even that the girl displayed uncooperative behavior. But once the uncut, unedited, unvoiced footage was broadcast, the truth could no longer hide behind polished press releases. The footage began at 10:31 a.m., the moment Alana entered, alone. She stood in the evening gown section, looking around, doing nothing particularly unusual. A staff member approached, not Kylie, but another unidentified woman. The employee looked Alana up and down with visible suspicion, then walked away without greeting her. 10 seconds later, Deborah Knox entered the frame, her eyes sharp, her stride deliberate, like she had already decided the problem was this young girl. And then came the damning line, captured clearly on the audio. Do you have money? If not, it's best you leave. Inside the executive boardroom of Lumina Fashion Group, the silence was absolute as the clip was played for the third time. The first viewing had shocked everyone. The second was spent looking for any possible context. By the third, only shame remained. Marcus, Monica's brother, was the first to break the silence. So it's definitive. There's nothing left to debate. This footage should remain untouched, circulated to all store branches, and released to the press. A communications advisor tried to raise a concern about reputational risk, but Monica cut in. The greatest risk is letting customers believe we're still trying to cover this up. Within 24 hours, the video was released alongside a personal statement from the CEO. The footage doesn't lie, but silence does, and I refuse to stay silent. Social media, already ablaze, now erupted. Users clipped scenes from the footage, adding subtitles, reaction videos, and frame-by-frame breakdowns of Deborah Knox's facial expressions like they were dissecting a criminal case. The hashtag #Deborah Must Go flooded every platform, from TikTok to LinkedIn. But what exploded most were the responses from people who had experienced similar treatment, not just at La Rue Luxe, but across the luxury retail industry. A popular TikToker uploaded a reaction video to the line, "Do you have money?" with the caption, "That line defined my childhood. Every time my mom took me to Macy's, I was looked at like I was planning to steal." In less than 3 days, over 80,000 comments were left across related posts, many from former fashion industry workers, security guards, and even public figures. One black model who had walked the runway at New York Fashion Week posted, "I was once stopped from entering the show I was booked for because I wore a hoodie and came through the side door." Every voice pointed to the same truth. Discrimination still exists, quiet but relentless. When Monica appeared before the public for the first time since the closed-door meeting, she wasn't wearing a power suit. She wore a simple dress, the very one Alana had tried to buy. And that choice wasn't accidental. During her press statement, she opened with a line that stunned the entire room into silence. "This dress isn't worth more than the words I've said to my daughter. But that day, because I stayed silent, she thought her mother couldn't protect her. Today I stand here, not to prove power, but to apologize." That sentence didn't just move the audience, it shifted the entire tone of the national dialogue. Monica wasn't just playing the CEO, she was playing the mother who had once stayed quiet for strategy and now chose to speak for truth. She ended the speech with this message: "We can't undo yesterday, but we can make sure that tomorrow, when a child walks into one of our stores, they won't need to prove they belong." Hours later, news outlets ran with headlines like, "Footage confirms racial profiling at LaRue Luke's. CEO issues emotional response." Major television networks competed to break down the footage, replaying each word, every look. But there was one part of the video that was never broadcast publicly, because it had only been shared internally. It was the moment right after the incident when Kylie walked into the lobby, saw Alana curled up on the bench, and handed her a cup of orange juice. No dialogue, just action. But that scene, Monica insisted, must be included in all new internal training on cultural sensitivity. She called it the recovery moment, because kindness, when shown at the right moment, can be the wall that stops a wave of judgment. The morning after the footage was released, the headquarters of Lumina Fashion Group was filled with a tense but orderly atmosphere. Unlike typical PR crises, this time no one could blame it on a minor mistake from a local branch or an inexperienced employee. What Deborah Knox had done and said had been recorded in full, undeniable. And what made it impossible to handle internally anymore was that the public simply no longer allowed for it. Monica entered the executive boardroom at 7:58 a.m., 2 minutes before the scheduled time. She came without an assistant, without a laptop, just holding a plain white envelope. In the room full of executives, lawyers, and crisis advisors, no one spoke a word. She pulled out a chair, sat down, opened the envelope, and took out a single sheet of paper, a list. "These are the individuals I'm requesting be suspended immediately pending internal investigation, effective today. And these are the ones I'm asking to resign, non-negotiable." All eyes fixed on the paper. At the very top, Deborah Knox, Regional Manager, LaRue Lux Northwest Division. Next were two regional directors who had previously received complaints about her but failed to act. Another was the area's head of HR, who had blocked Kylie's transfer request, citing budget constraints. Monica didn't raise her voice or assert dominance, but in the way she read each name, calmly, without hesitation, everyone understood. This wasn't a meeting anymore. This was the start of a purge. At the same time, over at the Seattle branch of LaRue Luke's, Deborah Knox was asked to leave the corporate office. There was no shouting, no police presence, just an email requesting she meet with legal at HQ to receive her termination notice and hand over instructions. Deborah never spoke to the press, but internally she portrayed herself as a scapegoat, claiming her actions didn't deserve this. However, after a second video surfaced, an internal recording in which she told staff, "Black kids are usually troublemakers. Don't let them wander the store." All quiet support vanished. No one wanted to defend her anymore. Activist groups began demanding that Lumina disclose more internal data, especially on racial discrimination complaints across the chain. Monica didn't deflect. She held another press conference, not to explain but to announce a plan of action. "We will be conducting a full audit of all 42 branches nationwide. Within 60 days, anyone found to have engaged in discriminatory behavior at any level will be held accountable. No exceptions. That wasn't just a gesture to calm public outrage. It came with concrete steps. Monica appointed an independent oversight committee composed of social justice advocates, scholars, and community leaders to supervise the entire review and internal response process. This committee was granted full access to Lumina's complaints, hiring, and personnel transfer systems for the past 5 years. Inside LaRue Lux, several staff who had previously remained silent about the incident began to speak up. One sent an internal email apologizing for not protecting Alana. Another, who had once been scolded by Deborah for being too soft with non-buying customers, stepped forward to testify. In a surprise move, Kylie Nguyen declined a promotion offer. She simply told Monica, "I don't need a title. I just want to work in a place where kindness isn't mistaken for weakness." Monica smiled and replied, "Then help me rebuild that from the ground up." From that day on, Lumina's entire employee training system was redesigned. Situational response modules were no longer just slides and checkboxes. Real people, those who had once been victims, were invited to speak. And more importantly, they no longer called it diversity training. Monica renamed the entire program Human Dignity, Not Optional. The internal reforms quickly created ripple effects outside. A competing fashion chain launched an ad campaign with the slogan, "You don't need a CEO to walk in to be treated with respect." But the campaign was slammed for being tone-deaf and opportunistic. Monica offered no public response, but in an internal email she wrote, "We're not rebuilding to compete. We're doing this for kids like Alana, so they don't have to prove their worth just to be greeted." The consequences for Deborah didn't end with her termination. A nonprofit organization dedicated to monitoring racial discrimination in the workplace submitted a case file to the Washington State Human Rights Commission, requesting an investigation into her repeated behavior over the past decade. Several attorneys representing former victims, whose complaints had previously been ignored, began reopening their cases. And in a preliminary hearing at the Seattle Civil Court, her name appeared on the list of individuals to be subpoenaed. No one knew how it would end, but one thing was certain. She would no longer quietly re-enter the retail world under a different name. As for Monica, the personal consequence was a transformation in how she viewed power. She once believed power was for shielding the company from crisis. But after what happened to her daughter, she realized power is meant to prevent crises in the first place. In a private email to Marcus, her brother, a former judge, she wrote, "I used to think professionalism meant knowing when to stay silent. Now I believe professionalism means knowing when to break that silence." He replied with just one line, "Welcome to the bench." Monica returned to the LaRue Lux Seattle branch on an unannounced Friday afternoon. Not in the role of a CEO conducting inspections, not to issue orders or conclusions, but simply to observe, as a mother who had once seen her own daughter get hurt in the very space she had once believed to be a symbol of elegance and respect. The front glass doors had been polished to a shine, and the new campaign poster, "Human Dignity, Not Optional," was prominently displayed to the right of the entrance. But Monica knew appearances weren't what needed to change the most. Inside, the atmosphere was different. No more side glances tracking customers who didn't look wealthy enough. The receptionist, a young woman of East African descent, nodded gently to new arrivals, speaking in a calm tone that made no distinction between faded jeans and cashmere coats. Monica slowly walked through each display area. No one recognized her. That was exactly what she wanted. By the fitting room, a little girl twirled in a pastel blue dress, while her mother, a Latina nurse still in uniform, took a picture on her phone. Monica stood still for a few moments, then quietly turned away. It was the first time she had seen a moment resembling that day. But this time, no one came to interrupt. No one said, "You need to leave." On the second floor in the employee training room, Monica lingered longer. A guide recognized her and invited her in. But instead of sitting in the front row like she used to, she sat in the back, next to a stockroom worker. The session in progress wasn't about quarterly revenue goals, but an open discussion on a simple topic. Who was the first customer that changed the way you see people? One staff member shared about an elderly homeless man who used to come in every morning just to look at a silk scarf he once gave his late wife. Another talked about the time a child asked, "Why didn't anyone greet my dad when we walked in?" No one took notes. No PowerPoint slides were shown. But Monica knew this was the foundation of restoration. After the session, she stepped out onto the rear balcony. The spring breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass from the nearby park. And it was here that Kylie Nguyen, someone Monica had come to see as a moral anchor within the company, appeared with 2 iced teas. "You probably don't need to hear anything more," Kylie began, "but I just wanted to thank you for not backing down." Monica accepted the drink but didn't speak right away. After a pause, she finally said, "Honestly, I wanted to back down. So many times. But every time I remembered Alana's eyes, I knew I couldn't." They stood in silence for a while. Kylie shared that after the incident, she had been invited to speak at many places, conferences, universities, even a seminar on ethical leadership. But what moved her the most was a handwritten card from a 12-year-old girl who had witnessed the incident. The card read, "I used to think only famous people could do the right thing, but now I know anyone can if they're brave enough." Monica smiled softly. "That's what I had forgotten. I thought I needed to be a CEO to have the right to act. But turns out, doing the right thing doesn't need a title." Kylie looked at Monica and for the first time saw not a woman with unshakable control, but a mother, a woman who had once been shattered, once angry, once afraid, and who had risen again from all of it. A few days later, Monica approved the release of a video featuring Alana's own account. For the first time, no product placements, no effects, just a child recounting how it felt to be stopped by a security guard from entering a place she once loved. The 3-minute video ended with Alana saying, "I don't want anyone else to feel like they're not good enough just because of how they dress or the color of their skin." In just 24 hours, the video gained over 5 million views. But for Monica, what mattered most was this. For the first time in weeks, her daughter walked into a fashion store and didn't have to squeeze her mother's hand tightly. A month later, Monica hosted a special internal gathering at the Lumina Training Center. No grand signage, no VIP seating. She invited everyone who had been present the day of the incident, from warehouse staff to receptionists to security guards, and gave them the space to share how they truly felt. One former guard teared up as he shared that he'd been told beforehand to keep an eye on anyone not accompanied by an adult in a suit. Another confessed to staying silent when he overheard Deborah Knox call Kylie that overly emotional Vietnamese girl. Monica didn't interrupt anyone, and when they had all finished, she simply said, "I thank you for the truth. We can't restore dignity if we don't dare to look at the wound." At the end of the session, Monica pulled from her pocket an old piece of paper, a birthday card Alana had written but never sent. She read each word aloud, her voice steady but solemn. "Mom, I don't need a present. I just want you to promise me that the place I love won't hurt people the way it did today." The room fell completely silent. A second later, a gentle round of applause began, not out of sentimentality, but because an unspoken commitment had just been renewed. Once again, dignity, the very thing thought to be lost, was placed back where it belonged. Not on a poster, but in the hearts of those who had witnessed, who had once failed, and who had now chosen to rise. The launch day of the Dignity is Always in Style campaign took place under Seattle's crisp, cool skies. But in Monica's heart, it was warmer than any spring before. There was no big stage, no long banner flaunting the face of a celebrity. Everything revolved around a single item, the birthday dress, the very same pastel dress Alana had once chosen, now respectfully displayed in the center of the showroom on a faceless, headless mannequin, so that anyone could see themselves in it. It was no longer a product. It was a symbol of cultural shockwaves, of the restoration of dignity, of a child who had once been hurt but would not be defined by that pain. Monica entered the center in simple clothes, a white shirt and black slacks, no entourage, no media coverage. Beside her was Alana, returning to the store for the first time in months. The girl wasn't holding her mother's hand, nor hiding behind anyone. Monica stopped, letting her daughter walk ahead. And when Alana approached the dress, she turned and smiled. It was not the smile of a child being placated with gifts, but of someone who had been heard and respected. All eyes followed her, not because she was the CEO's daughter, but because that dress reminded everyone that true elegance doesn't lie in the price tag, but in the way a child dares to step into the place that once wounded her. And smile. Kylie Nguyen, now the National Director of Human Resources, stepped beside Monica and whispered, "That dress. It was finally sewn with the meaning it deserved." Monica nodded. No words were needed. Throughout the ceremony, Monica didn't speak as a CEO. She simply shared a story, her voice calm, that there was once a child turned away for wearing the wrong clothes, that there was once a mother who believed silence was noble, and that there was once a corporation that thought ethics were an internal matter. She didn't name names, she didn't accuse, but every sentence cut through the old system's self-satisfaction like a blade, and every word served as healing for those who had once stayed silent. After the ceremony, guests were invited to tour a new exhibit, the outfits no one chose. There, dresses, coats, shoes, scarves were displayed not for fashion, but for memory. A pair of shoes once mocked for being not showroom appropriate. A coat belonging to a single father who had been told to leave the fitting area, a nurse's uniform, the very same Alana's mother wore when taking her daughter shopping for a gift. There were no price tags, only story cards. Each piece carried a narrative, and every narrative was a mirror reflecting the need for self-reflection. Within 3 weeks, LaRue Luxe locations across the country began implementing No Mirror Days, a day where customers and staff didn't worry about appearance, but focused solely on experience and emotion. Some pushed back, but thousands of handwritten letters, emails, and messages poured in, from people who once felt excluded, from staff who had been told to judge customers based on handbags, from young girls who once thought they weren't pretty enough to be treated with respect. Monica didn't reply to every letter, but she read all of them. And with each story, she was reminded of one thing, that sometimes to change a system, you don't need a billion-dollar campaign, just a single dress and someone brave enough to say, enough. One evening after the launch, Monica and Alana sat by the window of a small cafe on the old corner, the place where Monica once had her first date with her ex-husband, now a quiet companion behind the scenes. Alana ate a pastry, icing still on her lips. Monica smiled. "If I had listened to you earlier, maybe everything would have been different." Alana shrugged. "But if you hadn't acted after, everything would still be the same." Her reply left Monica speechless. That child was no longer just her daughter. She was the one who had made Monica look inward. At headquarters, a new photo was hung in the entry hall. Not of the executive board, not of the new season's poster, but a candid shot of Alana on the day she stood in front of the dress at the launch. From behind, her face unseen, but the light shining from above illuminated the dress, reminding everyone that respect begins in the places we assume are too small to matter. The campaign, a dress that changed everything, quickly spread across the industry. Competing brands, though cautiously, began launching appearance-neutral initiatives. A few articles criticized it as a PR stunt. Monica didn't respond. She understood. If one dress could spark a conversation industry-wide, then regardless of its origins, the result was worth it. Not to sell more, but to heal. On the final day before the campaign's close, Monica received a handwritten letter, no return address. Inside were 3 lines in pencil, shaky but clear. "You don't know me, but because of Alana's story, I went back to school. I wore the dress they used to laugh at me for, and no one laughed this time. Thank you for believing we're worth it." Monica read it 3 times, then slipped the letter into her wallet, next to a photo of young Alana. There is no such thing as an ending here, because dignity has no expiration date, and a dress, if sewn with kindness, can change more than a wardrobe. It can change the way people see one another, and more importantly, the way they see themselves. If you've ever been judged just because of how you look, if you've ever been turned away because you didn't look like someone who could afford it, or if your child, your niece, or someone you love was once denied kindness just for picking a simple dress, then you know this isn't just a story. This is a reminder that dignity never goes out of style, that a small dress can challenge an entire industry, and that a little girl, brave enough to return to the place that once hurt her, is the kind of courage we should all be teaching our children. Do you feel it? Do you feel joy when you see a child finally being heard? Do you feel warmth watching a mother use her position to heal, not to strike back? Or are you still angry, thinking about all the other children out there, the ones who don't have a Monica to stand behind them? If this story touched you, leave a comment. What part of this video made you stop and think? Like this video if you believe kindness should be contagious. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story that stirs something real in you. Justice, compassion, or sometimes just a reason to keep believing in people. Because sometimes one dress really can change everything.